Hello, welcome to the Citrus Garden. If you're new here, my name is Christina. If you're not new here, hi, welcome back. It's great to see you. This is a pick a card reading for this week, up ahead, and the intention of this reading is to highlight specific energies that you may be working with or encountering this week. So it could play out as sort of like a weekly thing that you're being asked to work with or pay attention to, or it could be like a specific event that may play out. That will hopefully illuminate something about your life that will help you. So for these pick a card readings, I pick cards for the overall theme of the reading. So we'll get right into that. The first one we have here are the sparks of light and the void, which I'd love to come out together. So just a couple things that are happening astrologically this week. So today, Pluto moves into retrograde. In Capricorn. So it just recently moved into Aquarius, but it's retrograding back into Capricorn for starting today for I think like the next 5 months or something. So it does kind of feel like this is going to be more of a long-term energy. So it's perhaps starting this week, but it will be sort of a longer-term energy that you may be working with for the next 5 months, for example. And then also at the end of the week on Friday, we have the full moon in Scorpio, which is also a lunar eclipse. And that's what this void energy is bringing in. Because this energy here is talking about sort of like an absence of something. Or just like not being able to see very clearly, right? And it's really interesting that it's coming out with the sparks of light. Because something with the lunar eclipse, which is interesting, because it is a full moon, right? So normally the full moon would be fully visible in the sky. But because it's a lunar eclipse, that means that the moon is in the Earth's shadow. So it won't be as illuminated by the sun, depending on the angles and things like that. But so how I'm seeing that is kind of like there's some sort of thing that like something that we can normally see clearly is kind of how it's coming through, is being sort of shrouded. And I feel like the reason why that is kind of like because it's trying to bring this to light, the sparks of light, right? Some sort of like hope or new inspiration or some sort of different sensation is kind of how it's coming through, right? So it's kind of like if you turn off all the lights, right? So something that we used to see, we have to sort of depend on our other senses is kind of what's coming through. And I feel like what this is talking about is that there's some sort of other thing that I feel like is perhaps not normally visible to us or not normally accessible in some way because we're so used to our regular routines or like using, for example, technology or light, whatever that represents, in order to see something. So something new is coming in is kind of how it's feeling. Or something new well, that's the thing. It doesn't feel new. It feels like something that's been there perhaps, but you're seeing it in a different way. Or there's some sort of new hope coming in that's associated with this, whatever that is. And it's coming out here as well with the Earth's Heart, which I really love. I love this card because this is kind of bringing in that Scorpio energy of like going really deep. That's what this card is talking about. Almost to like the core of you is kind of how it's feeling. Or the core of a certain situation. It doesn't have to be like within you, but depending on what group it is. So this void energy is coming in. So perhaps it's just talking about like something that perhaps you depend on is being removed in some way, or there's just an absence, or you're seeing something in a different way, and it's perhaps encouraging you to go really deep into a situation or to like connect with your roots, because you also have here the great work. So I'm just drawn to this red flower here. So red represents to me like the root, right? So like the root chakra. So that could be talking about like your foundations or your security or like family, and belonging is also part of this as well. So going really deep into some sort of root chakra related situation that is bringing about like it's almost like, for example, right? Like being when, I don't know if it's that extreme, maybe, because Pluto's in Capricorn. I feel like that's going to be playing a really significant part, because Capricorn to me represents sort of like physical stability and structure, right? Like the things that we depend on in our physical world. So there could be a major transition happening for that. And through that sort of perhaps absence, or seeing something using different, experiencing something using senses or whatever it is that we don't normally depend on, allows you to reveal something that brings about new hope, is kind of how that's feeling. I know that's super abstract, but we're going to get into the individual groups, which will hopefully shed more light on the situation. So I will put the timestamps in the description box below. All right, here are the individual cards for each group. So for group 1, we have the Lamb. For group 2, we have the Bee. And for group 3, we have the Moth. So I will hold up all 3 cards together so that you can compare. So we have group 1, group 2, and group 3. And the timestamps are in the description box below. Hi group 1, welcome to your reading. So we're going to start off here with the Tear and the Unicorn, which I really love together. These cards are looking like especially the colors, but it's kind of talking to me, especially with this aspect of the Tear here. It was looking to me like the third eye, right? And the Unicorn card is the card that represents the third eye chakra. So it could be talking about intuition specifically. It could be talking about your emotions as well, especially because there's a lot of like moon energy in this whole reading today. Like not just your reading, but the overall theme is very much connected to the moon, right? The full moon. I feel like perhaps there will be this like situation perhaps of like using your intuition or your third eye vision, or your emotional senses, perhaps like some sort of emotional understanding that is revealing some sort of truth here with the with this gem, because it's kind of, so it could be like going through a really emotional experience maybe that illuminates some sort of truth, right? Like going really deep into your emotions or how you feel in order to reveal something here. And it's really interesting because the cards that are coming out next are the Venom and the Lamb, which is so fascinating to me because the colors of these ones too are also very complementary, even though the energies are super different. So the Lamb I often talk about as being sort of like an innocence energy, right? Like a very innocent energy, and it could be you, right? Like some aspect of yourself, like perhaps like very young, when you were very young perhaps. And the Venom talks to me about pain that is passed on, and because of that pain, it's a cycle of pain is kind of how it's coming through with this one. And so because these cards are coming through together, it's kind of like perhaps like using your third eye vision to perhaps heal or identify some sort of vision, or some sort of vision maybe, or some sort of venom from perhaps like your childhood or when you were young. Because this card was bringing in the energy of breaking that cycle, right? It's kind of like this with the Tear, right? So perhaps you're going through some sort of emotional experience that's identifying some sort of venom in order for you to break that cycle and almost like return to your innocence is what this card is feeling to me like. A return to innocence of some sort, which is really lovely. And it's coming out here with the 5 of Wands. There's something on my nose. The 5 of Wands, which is such an interesting card. This energy is really present in like just my own personal life this past weekend, but it's kind of just like feeling like, so energies that are not in alignment is basically how I'm going to call it, just generally, right? There's a lot of mismatches, right? Like it's just not aligned. The energies are not, I don't know. So it could be in terms of other people, like you and the others around you perhaps are not in alignment. And so that causes conflict or discomfort or whatever. This today was actually looking to me like, you know, in like movies and stuff when there's like a cracked mirror, right? Like that's kind of the energy that's coming in here. So reflections that are not true, right? Reflections that have cracks in them or that are distorted in some way, especially because that's what's coming in here. Perhaps there's a distorted reflection in your environment that you'll be working with perhaps or encountering that is revealing some sort of venom that's surrounding you in however way that plays out, that's perhaps causing conflict. And then once that's cleared, perhaps through like an emotional experience, so it doesn't have to be through tears, but maybe perhaps especially with full moons, right? Like full moons can absolutely bring up that sort of energy. But it's also for a release, right? Full moons are really good for releases. And because it's coming in with Scorpio, the full moon in Scorpio, it's talking about like a death rebirth, right? So that's what this could be as well. A death of the venom energy and a rebirth into return to innocence is kind of how this is feeling, which is so lovely. And then you have here the Lovers and the Ten of Pentacles, which I really love. So it's bringing in this energy of like returning home is kind of how I see this Lovers card with the geese, right? Like returning home, having some sort of new start. But what I love about this is that you're going straight into the Ten of Pentacles. So it could be some sort of like, because with all of this sort of triangles card, which I love, like this sort of diamond here. So it's a return to innocence. But what I love about this Ten of Pentacles is that the 10th pentacle is this little tiny pentacle at the center of this, the middle one, which is talking to me about sort of like the return to innocence, right? But like clearing all the venom, like restores something that is a 10 of Pentacles kind of energy. So it's coming in with wholeness, especially the other energies coming in. There's sort of like this wholeness, but also a very innocent beginning, right? It's kind of like the Fool. It's because you also have the World card coming out in the spread today, which is really interesting. So the next couple cards to come out are the Comic, and then the Ring was at the bottom of the deck. So this Ring card, especially because it's coming out with the Venom, I did a reading like a month or two ago maybe. I'll link it above. It's a Libra Rising video, which had these two cards in it. So that might be relevant to you. So I'll link it above if you're interested in watching that. But this Comic and the Ring card was actually kind of feeling, because of that reading that I was just being reminded of, it was kind of bringing this energy of like another person, but it doesn't have to be. But because it's coming through with the Comic, it's almost coming through like, because I'm really drawn to the eyes, because if you think of like comedians or like a court jester kind of energy, people who like use humor in order to illuminate really deep truths. So it could be something like, this person here is at a distance, is kind of how it's feeling, because whoever is going through this energy, so it may not be you, there may be somebody else, because in this reading it feels like it's a dynamic between two people. Whoever this is, one person's going through some sort of cleansing of a venom in their environment or whatever, or in their soul or something like that, right? The core of who they are is being restored, right? The venom is being removed. And I feel like this one has seen this in perhaps in a previous, like months ago, maybe, right? Because especially with these eyes here, is kind of coming in a third eye. Like this one sees with their third eye always, perhaps. And it could be, especially with the Comic, that they were perhaps making light of a situation, right? Like, and I'm not in like a way to like not in a way to like make fun of somebody, but more so just like using humor or using lightness in order to reveal a truth, right? And with the ring here, there's so much with this ring. It's coming in with like connection, but also cycles as well. Things that are interconnected. So it's kind of feeling like something's coming back around. Of course, we're also in a Mercury retrograde as well. So that all that energy is here. There's a Mercury and a Pluto retrograde, which is tough energy. And a full moon eclipse in Scorpio. That's a lot. Okay, so the comic here is coming in with this energy of like somebody who is perhaps like speaking a truth in a very light-hearted way, perhaps using humor in order to illuminate a really sort of important, perhaps, truth about whatever this situation is. Especially because this is kind of coming in with like the energy of the bard, right? Somebody who like tells stories or sings songs or like writes ballads, that kind of thing, where it's like they take a very sort of difficult situation and then transform it into like something light or like a story or like a song to be shared, that kind of thing. So it's kind of like they're seeing how this story will play out. Maybe they're seeing how the full situation will play out, even though whoever this energy is may be feeling in a really sort of difficult or emotional, perhaps, time, is kind of how that's feeling, which is really interesting. Because they're also coming out here with the hummingbird and the snake, which I love. Because this snake card with the ring here, this card always talks to me about protection. But because it's coming out the ring and you also have here the world, it's talking to me about cycles today, right? Like things coming back around. The world card was really emphasizing wholeness or completion. So it's kind of coming in with this energy of like, perhaps you are in this energy or somebody in this situation. It might not be you. Somebody in this situation is going through a really like almost like perhaps a dark night of the soul energy, but it doesn't have to be that intense. Just feels like they're going through an emotional time because they're trying to clear some sort of venom, right? And I feel like they absolutely are going to be successful in that because of all of these cards. It's like this comic here could be, they can see the full picture. They can see the wholeness. They know how this story is going to end, is what this is talking about, right? It's like perhaps they're being sort of an encouragement or sort of like trying to lift you up or lift whoever that person is or that energy is, trying to, especially with the hummingbird, right? Provide lightness is kind of how it's feeling like bringing all of this like light and color into a situation or to lift it, right? To make it more playful maybe, or just like bring the comic is such a, this energy is so important to me because it's kind of like if you have those people, it's like when you are extremely upset about something, there are these people who are just able to make you laugh in even when you're like you were just crying 5 minutes before. That's what this energy feels like. So it could be somebody like that who's coming into your life, who's just making you laugh perhaps, or just lifting your spirits in whatever way that is. With all of this joy is kind of how it's coming through, which is so lovely. And then you have here the Empress, which I really love because this is absolutely bringing in sort of the energy of the lunar eclipse. That's what this was looking to me like today, the lunar eclipse, right? And the Empress is, of course, a very feminine energy. So it could be something like somebody is going through some sort of emotional time, and there's perhaps a feminine energy coming in to lift them up. And I want to say it's like, because you have here the two of cups and the two of wands coming out next, which I love so much because of course the rose here is bringing in sort of like the beginning theme of the rose, right? So it could be if you're going through a tough time, for example, there's some sort of feminine energy coming into to see some aspect of you, right? It's kind of like revealing some sort of truth about yourself, or revealing some sort of this lamb energy, which is just coming through as like innocence, or like so could be inner child work if you're in that sort of realm of spiritual practice. It could be I always just see this as being sort of like a naive, but in a very positive way, energy. Like someone before they've been sort of like hurt by the world is kind of how it's coming through. It's a return to that, though. It's like with all of your experiences, being reconnected with this sort of magical, innocent aspect of yourself, perhaps. And I feel like the Empress energy is coming in because they've been through that cycle before, or they're seeing it, right? They're seeing some aspect of the true core because it's shared, or because they're the same, or because they've gone through that cycle before and are seeing your situation from a distance is how this comic card is coming through, right? They've gone through it. They're detached from it in some way. They've completed that cycle. And then with the Two of Wands, which I love so much, because I always see this as being aligned in your path, right? You're going from the Five of Wands, where it's all sort of a broken mirror or broken reflections, into one that's much more harmonious, like clear skies ahead kind of energy, being on your path, being in alignment. All of that is coming in, which is so wonderful. So I'm going to end the reading there. I did pull I pulled Moonology cards, and two of them came out, which is kind of emphasizing to me that it's a dynamic between two people. So one person is the full moon in Capricorn, the end of a tough cycle approaches. And then the second one is look at the bigger picture, the full moon in Sagittarius. All right, group one, I'm going to end it there. Thank you so much for watching. If this message resonated with you, please consider subscribing, liking, or leaving a comment down below. Thank you so much for sharing your energy with me, and I hope you have a great week. Bye. Hi, group two. Welcome to your reading. Let's get started. So we're starting off here. The bottom of the deck for the Archetypes card was the Offering. And so I feel like this is the main energy of this reading, is that there's an offer being made by somebody to another. It does feel like there's two energies here, so it could be two people, like a dynamic between two people, but it doesn't have to be. It could also be like two aspects within yourself, especially because of the cards that are coming through. But I'm gonna just explain it as two people just to make it easier, but always keep in mind that it could be a conversation between like two aspects of yourself, and those two aspects, or those two energies, are coming out here as the Eternal Child and the Warrior, which I love. And then what was in between them was the Bridge, right? So it's a connection between the Eternal Child and this Warrior energy, which is really interesting to me, because so the Bridge talks about connection, right? But of course it's bringing in sort of this energy because the Offering came out underneath the Warrior, right? So the Warrior, whoever they are, making an offer or a gesture or reaching out perhaps to whoever the Eternal Child is. So it doesn't have to be a child. That could be a dynamic between so there could be a significant age difference, or there could be some sort of difference in terms of like, I want to say maturity, but that's not quite the right word. So it could be like something like, because whoever the Eternal Child is they're coming out with a Fool. So it could be that this one's starting a significant journey or path or something like that, where this one's more at the end stage, that kind of dynamic. But so it doesn't have to be age, though it could play out in that way for sure. So that's sort of the overall energy of this reading. And what's really interesting is that I feel like, so just these dynamics here, this was just reminding me of the show The Mandalorian, if you're familiar with that. It's a Star Wars show. the Mandalorian is this sort of warrior figure. He's a bounty hunter in that show, but one of the main characteristics of him is that he's completely covered in armor, and never part of his creed is that he never reveals his face to anyone, or like whenever he's around anyone. So it could be that element here, right? Like somebody who has a lot of armor perhaps, or just like needs to, it's coming in with this energy of protection, right? Like or perhaps not fighting necessarily, but just like an energy of protection or defense in some way. Whereas the eternal child is very open, and in the Mandalorian, the eternal child is an actual child, right? One that is defenseless. So defenseless in quotation marks, because of course he's not defenseless. He can use the Force, that kind of thing. But it's like the dynamic between those two, right? One who is perhaps defenseless, quote unquote, and the one who defends, that kind of thing. So there could be a kind of connection between that. It's really interesting because I feel like the warrior is kind of going through some sort of energy of indecision, is actually kind of what it's coming through as with these three cards. So you have the vulture, the turtle, and the shark, which is really interesting. Because the turtle here is coming in with all this energy of armor, right? Like the shell, the protectiveness. But this card always brings in this energy of like stories or like the past. And it's especially this reading is really strange. Sometimes, this hasn't happened in a while, but sometimes during Mercury retrograde, my readings will like, the cards will come out in reverse. So like I have to read it in the opposite direction. So this is why this could be like, this is your present day energy, right? The warrior. And you're going or like making a connection to some aspect of the past, right? Like the past version of yourself, right? Going back to like your stories or your origin, perhaps the beginning, in whatever way that relates. Because it was also coming through with this, the story. There was this Bruce Willis movie in like the year 2000, I think it was, called The Kid, which if you've seen that movie, if you haven't seen that movie, I should say, it's about Bruce Willis's character who's sort of reached this point in life where, like, with the warrior, very defensive in terms of, like, not wanting to be vulnerable. So it could be something like that. But then he encounters this kid who is actually him when he was like 8 years old or something like that, right? Like a past version of him, but like who is actually embodied. So it could be something like that. Perhaps you're meeting somebody who reminds you of like your childhood self, or like who you were when you were a child. And then how that story unfolds is that both of them have things to learn from each other. But of course, for Bruce Willis's character, the adult, right? There's all of this energy of the shark. The shark, someone who comes off perhaps as a bit mean, was kind of how it's coming through. They come off a bit mean, which is really interesting. Or just like, if it's not mean, it's like with the Mandalorian, with the armor, perhaps intimidating in some way, but misunderstood. Their armor is misunderstood perhaps, or there's a like some sort of defensiveness. And I'm not saying that in like in a negative way. It's just kind of like they have a lot of protection energy about them, right? There's a lot of this protection energy. Anyways, so this, and the shark energy is also coming out with sort of this energy of like something that's not being said. So I got distracted. What I was saying here with these cards is that it's kind of feeling like an indecisiveness, because I feel like there's almost like two ways that this warrior can go, right? Where it's kind of like they can stay in this shark energy, and sort of the caution that comes through with the shark energy is that when there's something that needs to be said that isn't being said, it causes bigger issues, which is not what is wanted here. The vulture today is coming in with this energy of like releasing something. So it could be in terms of words, so it doesn't have to be. It could I have no idea what this offer is, what this offer is talking about, but it's kind of just feeling like there's two choices. They can either stay in the shark energy, but I feel like whatever's happening in the shark energy is actually causing them pain or difficulty in some way. And it's like when they embrace the vulture energy, which is like releasing something, or because it is an air sign, right? So it could be, because I see this as being sort of like a purge, right? Like releasing what needs to be said, or something like that. Because the energies that are coming out underneath to clarify this. So the first card out was the Eight of Cups, which absolutely, like, this came out under the shark energy, right? There's something that's not being said, and because of that withholding, it's causing illness or pain in some way. That's what this card talks about, right? It's like the more that you ignore this, the more it becomes painful, or that it's coming in with this energy of holding on to something, right? Anyway, so I feel like, so it's like they can choose to stay here, but the Eight of Cups always talks about like walking away from something because it's not satisfying. And I feel like that's sort of the guidance for the warrior, whoever they are. But for some reason, it was coming in with this energy of, especially with the offering, that it feels like there's some sort of sacrifice that is needing to be made, but that the sacrifice is linked to something sacred. The sacrifice is linked to something sacred, because what's coming out here is the Ten of Wands, which is all of this energy of burden, right? So it's kind of like perhaps it's like it would be but it's like all of that armor is a burden, right? All of the armor is a burden, but is perhaps part of their identity or their story, right? That's kind of what's coming through here. The armor is part of their identity, but it at the same time is a burden. So it would be a sacrifice on their part to remove the armor, because it would be like they're losing some aspect of their identity or their story, perhaps, which is really interesting. And then you have here the Emperor and the Six of Pentacles. And I feel like the Six of Pentacles is the offering, because this talks about generosity. So it doesn't have to be Pentacles related, though it could be, just because it's coming in with Pentacles. There's a lot of Pentacles energy as well in this spread today. So, but because it's the Emperor, it could be talking about structure in some way, like some sort of structure, or but the Emperor, again, so it could be a masculine energy that's needing to be, because the Warrior is also very masculine energy. All of these, so this feels like that I feel like this one has, so if you just think about the story The Mandalorian, if you've watched it, like he has so much, like, perhaps skills, or like the ability to protect, or like a lot of resources in order to perhaps teach or give or offer, is kind of like a lot of skills to offer is what's coming through here. That's just what it is. That's whatever that is. They have a lot to offer, but I feel like there's a hesitation, or not a hesitation. There's indecision, because it would be a burden in some way, or there would require a sacrifice, right? Because to take on perhaps like whoever this eternal child is, it's like that's another responsibility perhaps, or there's but it's coming out here with the bee, which is really interesting. And I feel like with the Warrior as well, what was coming through here is like, so the Warrior has sort of a lot of skills, perhaps, in terms of whatever this is talking about. So it could be work related. They have a lot to offer. They're very skilled is what's coming through. They have a lot of skills in whatever area this relates to. But it feels kind of like they've become detached from some sort of purpose or mission, especially because it's the eternal child's coming out with the bee. So if this is a dynamic within self, it's like whatever you're doing for work or whatever it is, perhaps there's become some sort of like a detachment from this sort of playful energy of like it's not fun anymore, or there's not a sense of fun or play in whatever this sort of energy is. And I feel like what's happening in this week, or what you're being asked to work with, is reconnecting to this aspect, right? So that could be one thing, is reconnecting to an aspect of play and fun in your work, which may require a sacrifice of some sort, of like sacrificing some aspect of your armor or your identity in some way in order to reconnect with this. Or it could be like there's a dynamic between two people where one's making an offer to someone else who's at an earlier stage, who is coming in with all of this, because the bee comes in with this energy of community, right? Like, so it could be like helping a community, someone in your community, or someone in your family or friend group or whatever. So it could be somebody who's the warrior is coming in to offer help or assistance to someone who is perhaps just starting out, is kind of how it's coming through. So it doesn't have to be a child. It just feels like they're starting something. And it could have to do with their abundance and so, or their physical security is what's coming in. So the bee energy, whoever the eternal child is, the bee, you have here the Three of Wands, which I love so much, because this talks about sort of like having a vision, or like a goal, right? Like working towards something, of becoming self-sufficient was actually what was coming through here, which is really interesting. And they're also coming out here with the Justice and the Father of Pentacles, the King of Pentacles. So I feel like this is what they're working on, right? Like self-sufficiency, or like abundance in some way, or prosperity, or long-term abundance, whatever you want to call this. What was interesting in this reading here, or in this card in the guidebook, was saying that this Father of Pentacles has a lot of stability and prosperity, but it is driven by a lot of passion, is what was coming through here, right? So this bee or eternal child is connected to their passion and is doing some sort of work that brings stability or abundance or whatever it is, right? Compared to the Emperor, which is all of that energy, a lot of stability, but the Emperor in this deck is a tree, right? Not necessarily enlivened or embodied, right? There's kind of like the something, like they have stability, but they're not enlivened by it, maybe. So that might be like the dynamic between the two, which is wanting to come together, because here with the Justice card is how I'm seeing that with the bridge. It's really interesting because so I got this Wild Unknown deck very recently, but the original version of this card, there's no worlds here in the center. So, because this is an updated card, which is really interesting. So it could be something, and it's like the tails are intertwined, right? So it's coming in with all of this sort of like having the whole world, or having some sort of like completion that requires two, right? There's kind of that energy that's coming in. It would be like the vision or the world requires a collaboration between two, but it's kind of like it kind of feels like the warrior here is on the fence, or needing to leave some, or like make a sacrifice or whatever it is to complete the picture, is what's coming in. Okay, and then you have here the Ace of Wands, the Fool, and the Wheel of Fortune, which I feel like this is the bee, the eternal child. All of this like sort of new inspiration and new hope that's coming in. With the Wheel of Fortune as well, it's kind of like, I feel like there is sort of this timing energy that's coming in for this, because we are in retrograde energy, Mercury and Pluto. It's kind of like maybe there's sort of like that energy needs to play out a little bit more. So it may not be in this week. It may be sort of like this is the start of it, but I don't know. And as Mercury retrograde fades, maybe as it sort of goes back into the regular transit. Maybe that will be the start of it. I'm not sure exactly what that is. But anyway, so I'm going to leave the reading there. I pulled Moonology cards just to end it off. So the first one says, confidence is your key to success, the new moon in Leo. And then, what do you need to release, the waning moon? So it could be after the full moon, when the moon is waning. That might be a significant timing aspect for you. All right, group 2, I'm going to end it there. Thank you so much for watching. If this message resonated with you, please consider liking, subscribing, or leaving a comment down below. Thank you so much for sharing your energy with me, and I hope you have a great week. Bye. Hi, group 3, welcome to your reading. So we're going to get started. We're starting off here with these 2 cards. So the Vessel and the Poet, which is really lovely. So the Vessel's coming in with this energy of like holding, right? Or like things that keep us separate from the external environment or something like that. But what's really interesting with these 2 cards today, because the Poet to me represents sort of expression, or like a transmutation of pain, which is kind of interesting, because it kind of feels like, especially with this cards, like the hands kind of holding this light here, it kind of feels like there's whatever the context of this reading is, because we're starting out, or like the overall energy of this is prayer, right? So I feel like there's something that you've been praying for, perhaps like a miracle of some sort, maybe, or especially with the Vessel here, it could be something like a physical ailment, or like something to do with like your physical body that may be needing attention, and it's like you're trying to find the answer, trying to find the solution maybe. And I feel like it has to do with some sort of blockage, or some sort of perhaps like environmental kind of energy here, with the Nectar coming out next, because this one I always see is sort of like being pulled out of a situation that's kind of difficult here, like that there may be sort of environmental pressures, or like a black mold kind of energy, whatever that is, like something that's harming you that perhaps you're not seeing, or something like that, right? And it's like being pulled out of that situation. But I'm feeling like perhaps you're having to make the move, is kind of how it's feeling, or you're needing to take some sort of action, is kind of the energy that's coming through here, which I normally see as being, but I feel like it's like you're receiving the information with the Son of Swords at the bottom of the deck. You're receiving some sort of information or understanding or truth as well with the Poet about what it is that you need to do, or how to remove the blockage, or whatever that is. And I feel like that's coming in for you this week, which is really interesting. So we have here the Owl, which just coming out with the Son of Swords, right? This one I always see as sort of like an incoming message of some sort. And the Owl from this deck talks about receiving some sort of blessing or gift, right? So receiving some sort of message or gift that helps to remove a blockage in some way, though I feel like it has something to do with so it doesn't have to be your physical body, because the Vessel, it's also coming out with the Devil energy, so this could be any sort of physical pattern or structure that is perhaps keeping you stuck in some way. But I feel like there's something really helpful about this energy, actually, because it's like, especially if you have some sort of like physical ailment or something that's off about like your body in some way, it's kind of revealing something to you about like something that needs to be changed, right? It's revealing some sort of truth, perhaps, about whatever is going on with you, perhaps on like an energetic or spiritual kind of level. So there's that energy coming through. For some reason, with all of these cards coming out with the Nectar and the Vessel and also the Poet, because it was kind of looking like this one's like holding their belly, or like it could be like sacral chakra related, because this card to me talks about like expression, right? Like creative expression, especially with the Nectar, all this yellow, or sorry, orange and pink energy coming in. So it could have to do with like something that you're creating or wanting to create, but it's kind of like perhaps there's a blockage or something like that. Especially with the first card here, we have the Mother of Wands, which is sort of like a creative energy. And because it's kind of looking like with the eggs here, right? Like holding on to some sort of, perhaps like there's some sort of blockage within the sacral chakra in some way. It doesn't have to be though. That's just sort of what's coming through for this card. This card also mentions briefly in the guidebook something about like one who is incredibly strong and powerful and can create a lot of things, but are also holding trauma in some way, like have experienced hardship or trauma in their past. And I feel like that energy is going to be cleared for you, is kind of how it's feeling. Like there's going to be like an understanding or a message or some form of communication or blessing or an answer perhaps to something that you've been asking for, to clear some sort of blockage is what's coming through, which is really lovely. And then the next cards to come out you have here are the Moth and the Six of Wands. So of course the Six of Wands talks about success. What's really interesting about this butterfly though, is that it only has like the two wings, right? So I did a reading, I think it was last week, that mentioned like a sad butterfly of like transforming sadness. So I'll link it above if you're interested. There may be messages in there for you. But so I feel like that's what this card is talking about. It's like transforming, transmuting, or defeating, or I'm just going to stick with transforming pain or sadness of some sort, which was perhaps causing a blockage or something like that. The Moth coming in is emphasizing sort of like rising up, right? Like being, I feel it's coming through with like a really big blockage of some sort that is being broken through. That's coming through with the vessel, right? Because this card talks about like containers, right? Things that keep us contained. But it could talk about like something breaking open or being released in some way is what's coming through with this energy. And then what you have here next is this interesting combination of cards, the Devil, the Three of Pentacles, and the Daughter of Pentacles, which is really interesting because this Three of Pentacles I'm seeing as the blockage. It's coming through kind of like a mountain, but it sometimes also comes through as being like something that is covered by a tarp, or like something that's covered, right? There's something underneath this that is needing to be revealed in some way. And because it's coming in with the Three of Pentacles, that talks about collaboration. So I'm seeing this as being a collaboration between two. One who's coming in with sort of the Devil energy, but I want to say it's more so something to, especially with the feet on fire, right? I feel like this one, whoever this is, maybe you, because it's kind of like this is the main focus of this reading. There's someone in this dynamic who is encountering some sort of, it looks like pain to me with the feet on fire, right? Some sort of like perhaps physical pain in some way. But because it's also coming in with the Goat, like I was just thinking of like the Goat, like the greatest of all time. I feel like that sort of acronym. So it could be something like this one is like very good at something, right? It's like perhaps it has something to do with like enduring a lot of physical stress or some way, like there's a lot of perhaps physical stress or physical load on this person in some way, and that's what this is. And then the Daughter of Pentacles, who's bringing in all this rainbow energy, right? Which is kind of like, if we were talking about transforming sadness, the rainbow after the rain is what this is coming through with. So it's like there's some sort of rain energy, whatever that is something is being broken open. And I feel like it's like almost like revealing the tarp off of this structure, whatever that is, collaborating with whoever this Daughter of Pentacles is. So this Daughter of Pentacles I sort of see as like a younger sister kind of energy, but it doesn't have to be. It just feels like I don't know, because it kind of, this one with the goat energy, someone who is capable of enduring a lot of stress. I'm just going to leave it like that. A lot of stress in some way. Whereas this one perhaps doesn't carry that much of the load, or it's like they don't carry as much, whatever that is. Perhaps they don't have as much experience or trauma, right? It's kind of like they have a fresher, perhaps, perspective because they haven't gone through whatever this is. And it's like the collaboration between these two energies is what's helping to reveal whatever's under this tarp here. What's really interesting here, because what's coming out under the tarp, right, is all of this. You have here the Tower, the Ten of Swords, and then the Six of Swords. So all of this rainbow energy, right? So the Six of Swords talks about moving into calmer waters. I feel like this energy, whoever the Daughter of Pentacles is bringing in that rainbow. But at the same time, it's kind of like revealing some sort of, like, this is what's under the tarp, right? This is what's being revealed in some way. The Tower and the Ten of Swords, which is really tough. It's a really tough energy. I don't want to put any examples on that because it's going to be specific to you, but I feel like this is sort of the blockage being removed, right? This is the blockage being, first of all, seen, I want to say, right? Like seeing what the problem is. This is like the truth or the understanding or the realization. And then I guess the healing process that comes after it. But it's kind of like I feel like on some level, if you're watching, if you pick this group, if you're watching it, it's kind of like you have to ask, is what's coming through here, right? It's kind of, because I'm seeing this as being sort of like, especially with the other cards coming out, the truth is there waiting for you, but it's kind of like you have to go out and ask, because it's not this one here, the Daughter of Pentacles, whoever they are to you, I feel like they're not, because it kind of comes in with this energy of like, not necessarily shyness, but just like they're not the ones to instigate whatever this is. They're not going to be the one to approach, is kind of how this is feeling. It feels like you are the one who's having to go to this one and ask, can you help me with this situation, is what that's feeling like, whatever that means. I don't know what form, and it's like they have the answer, or they are willing to collaborate, but you have to be the one to ask to have this truth or whatever revealed, is what that's feeling like, because it's going to be tough, is how it's coming through. It's not an easy energy, and so it's like you have to be prepared for it, or perhaps this reading is preparing you for it, or I don't know, perhaps just like it's not going to be something that comes in unless you're ready to face what this is, because this is not an easy energy for sure. So that's going to be dependent on you. And I feel like it's like it's encouraging you to move in this way, especially if you've been encountering any sort of blockage or physical pain. It's kind of like seeking out the answer, seeking out what the answer is, but the answer is perhaps difficult. But I want to say that this is feeling like a past energy, right? It's like this has been perhaps like you've endured a lot of stress or pain or trauma perhaps in your past, and it's like revisiting that or removing the tarp from whatever that is or something like that, and perhaps having to re-experience it. But that's when sort of the blockage is cleared. This is what causes the blockage to be removed and cleared and broken open. And then we have here the Six of Cups to end it. So you have 3 sixes in this reading, which is talking to me about like moving into more harmonious energy, something that's more peaceful and soothing is kind of how it's feeling to me. I'm just really drawn to like the reflections of these cards, because I feel like you and the Daughter of Pentacles, whoever they are absolutely it's kind of coming through as like two sides of a coin, or just like two, perhaps a reflection of some sort, but like one, but obviously not the same, right? It's like your reflections, but revealing a truth about each other. Like in seeing how they are different to you, it reveals more of a truth about yourself, is kind of how that's feeling, which is really interesting. But both are incredibly strong in their own right, is kind of how this is feeling. I want to just hold it like this, because both sides can be upright to me in this card, in this energy, which is really interesting. It's like, so I'm just going to hold it like this. I feel like there's kind of like an equal, it kind of feels like equality, even though perhaps one person in this energy is perhaps like greater or like older. I don't know. It's coming through with like an older sister, younger sister kind of energy, but it doesn't have to be that. That's just what's coming through here, which is really interesting. One may be more established is what's coming through here, because this card reminds me of the Emperor card in this deck. Okay, anyways, I'm going to leave it there. I pulled Moonology cards. So for you, we have Be Bold and Make the First Move, the Cardinal Moon, which I feel like is guidance for you, because it's kind of like you have to seek this one out in order for there to be a collaboration. So it kind of feels like you are the one who is needing to seek out the answer. And then we have Surrender to the Divine, the full moon, which is this Friday. So I'm going to end the reading there. Thank you so much for watching. If this message resonated with you, please consider subscribing, liking, or leaving a comment down below. Thank you so much for sharing your energy with me, and I hope you have a great week.